So it is my pleasure to announce our next speaker, North Carolina Now, National Organization for Women, Gailya Paliga. Gailya, I think most people know Gailya, but I'll do a short introduction. She is the president of the North Carolina National Organization for Women, as well as the Raleigh Now organization. She's chair of the North Carolina Now PAC, and she's one of the organizers of the in-person women's marches in Raleigh. She is a friend to many, a great supporter of so many causes, and we're pleased to have her join us. Gailya?
Thanks. Thank you so much, Lori. I have a face. Who knew? I'm so glad to see everybody on this lovely day, in person and outdoors. Thanks to my sisters in organizing this great event and to the creativity of our friends from the ocean to the mountain. Specifically, I'd like to especially thank Lori Bunton, Jimmy Cochran, Pratt, Judy Lotus, Audrey Muck, and everybody. Everybody's been wonderful. Thanks also to the legislators for fighting for us every day. I know we don't know a portion of what you're having to deal with. Today is Women's Equality Day, which celebrates women getting the right to vote. This right was granted in the 19th Amendment in the U.S. Constitution in 1920. Shocking that it took that long, and now it's 101 years later, and that's all we have. It's not enough. We need to recognize that not all women got the right to vote in 1920, although the 19th Amendment granted it in theory and on paper. Women of color and poor women are still deprived of it. Poor women in the South were prevented from voting by a Southern poll tax. $1 to $2 was a lot of money back then. And people of color were prevented from voting in different ways for different excuses. Citizen status, literacy tests. Some just were citizens and were barred from voting. That's what happened to Native Americans. So while the 19th Amendment was necessary and moved us in the right direction, the right for women to vote was very unevenly granted. Something closer to universal suffrage wasn't guaranteed for everyone until 1965, when the Voting Rights Act passed Congress, and we're struggling with it again. So the power of women became clear again when the National Organization for Women focused on the passage of the National Equal Rights Amendment, ERA, to the we're still fighting for that here today, right now, and in Washington, there's another rally on the Supreme Court steps at noon today. Now was also integral in establishing Women's Equality Day. Consider this. On August 26, 1970, the 50th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, Now organized the Women's Strike for Equality March. Tens of thousands of women and allies, the estimates were 50,000 in New York City, marched down New York City's Fifth Avenue in an undeniable display of strength. The police wouldn't close the street for them, so they linked arms and blocked the major thoroughfare during rush hour. The strike's goals were to publicize the feminist movement and ideas and to expose the many injustices experienced by women. Certainly got people's attention. Here we'll remember the women's marches. In Raleigh, they wouldn't block the street for us, and we just took it over. Exactly 1 year later, in 1971, Congress officially declared August 26 as Women's Equality Day, the celebration of women's suffrage. Bella Abzug was the congresswoman that did that. It is important to note that it wasn't until 1971 that North Carolina finally made the symbolic gesture of ratifying the 19th Amendment, 51 years late. Yeah. As we're seeing, the need for ERA has never been more clear, so we continue working on it. Women remain an unprotected class of citizen, and as we're seeing, it's dangerous to be excluded from your own constitution. The extremism of the NC legislature shows why. Women are treated worse than men. Women of color are treated worse than white women. Trans people are treated worse than women. HB2, the bathroom bill, you'll remember. Shame on North Carolina. It also prevented cities from protecting citizens and residents. The refusal to raise the minimum wage affects women more. 2/3 of people on minimum wage are women in North Carolina and nationally. There's no equal pay, slashed unemployment here, millions of dollars going to crisis pregnancy centers, no raises for all. Remember the 7,000 TAs that were fired? And still insufficient raises for teachers. This is our legislature supposed to be representing us, and they're sucking for women. Another lesson from the Right to Vote and Women's Equality Day is that women need to show up and demand what they need. We can show up in letters to the editor, we can show up in letters to our representatives, we can show up in protests like this. Thank you so much for being here. Others have their own priorities and will take advantage of unpaid and lower paid hard work, as they've been doing for centuries. Our work is not done until all American women have social, economic, and political equity. ERA will help us get us there. Thank you.